Welcome to Cooking with Katarina. I hope during this quarantine that you are all staying safe and healthy. Well, it's not like I don't spend a lot of time in the kitchen, but during quarantine, I'm even more in the kitchen. And I'm trying out new recipes. And one of the new recipes that I kind of followed, but I got to put my own twist on it, is an easy artisan bread. And I hope you enjoy this one. So let's get started. I know it's so much easier to go to your favorite bakery or your favorite store to pick up one or two loaves of bread. But there is something so special. It's a labor of love to bake bread for your friends and family. And I have to be upfront. This recipe is a double recipe and will make 4 loaves. Now, if that's too much for you and your family and you don't want to maybe freeze a couple of loaves and just pull them out of the freezer when you need them, then cut the recipe in half. In our house, we love our bread, and I usually quadruple the recipe. So, I'm going to start with a list of ingredients that you're going to need. You're going to need 6 cups of flour, and I have 1 additional cup of flour in reserve that we're going to use when we're kneading the bread, and you'll see that in the process. You're also going to need 3 teaspoons of dry active yeast, 3 teaspoons of kosher salt, 3 teaspoons of sugar, 3 cups of warm water, and 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. At least that's what this recipe calls for. So if you don't have extra virgin olive oil, you can use regular oil. So canola. What we're going to do next is we're going to mix these ingredients all together. And I'm going to take a whisk and I'm going to just mix all that up. Okay, now that you have all your dry ingredients mixed thoroughly, we're going to go to adding the liquid. But before you add your liquid, make sure you've taken off your rings, because although we're going to stir this first, you are going to be kneading it, so you don't want to get any of that dough in your rings. It'll be a mess. So we're going to put in the 3 cups of water and the 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. And this technique is just a little bit different than my other bread recipe that I have on video. So you'll see what I mean here. So we're going to stir this until it's all mixed together. Now this dough is going to be sticky. So after we get done mixing this, I'll show you the next step. I wanted to show you, once I incorporated all the flour that we had in here, the 6 cups of flour, how it is very sticky. Okay, so next what we're going to do is, that additional cup we had in reserve? Well, we're going to take some of that and we're going to spread it on your counter, or if you have a board that you use for baking bread, you can put the flour down on it. And then you're just going to scoop out your dough onto the flour, and then we're going to incorporate some of that flour into this dough, because you want it to still be workable. And then once we do that, we're going to put it to rise. So if you haven't gotten a cloth out to cover your dough for rising, now would probably be a good time to do it. So, and I'll show you how we're going to do this next. What I do is put some flour on your hands, and then you're going to kind of lift it and kind of keep working that dough in there. And kind of punch it down too. You can see it's getting more workable now. And don't worry about all this other flour, because we're going to need that after it rises, and you're going to let it rise for an hour and a half or until it has doubled in size. Still feels a little sticky to me, so I'm just going to work with it a little bit more. I have flour going everywhere. And then once I've worked this all in, which we're almost there, I'm going to kind of tuck that under there and kind of shape it like I'm making one loaf. But you'll see, we're going to have enough dough here to make 4 loaves of bread. We'll make sure we got flour underneath it. And then we're going to take our cloth and cover it and set your timer for an hour and a half. Now, depending if you're making this on a hot day, it could take an hour and 15 minutes, but you'll know as this starts to rise. All right, when this rises to its full potential, we'll be back to show you the rest. Don't think I sat idle waiting for the dough to rise. I made some zucchini sauce, which we're going to have on angel hair pasta with our delicious bread. So, it's raised for an hour and a half, and we're going to save that cloth because we're going to need to have it covered again as it raises for a second time. And what I'm going to do is use a scraper and kind of cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. And if you're like me, I'm a little OCD, so what I do is I measure my dough balls out. And we'll get it there like that. I have a scale here that I usually measure them out on, just to make sure that they're even. And we'll take some of this flour and put them on the flour. So far I'm pretty good as far as the weight. We'll see how these two go. Well, that one's a little bit more, so what I do is I'll cut some of that off. I'll put that on the flour there. And we'll check this one out. So they're about, 14 ounces plus like 14.5. And what we'll do next is we're gonna roll these. You might want to put a little flour on your hands. And we're gonna form these into little loaves. And then we're gonna put them to rise for a second time, only for 30 minutes this time. And so we'll knead that down a little bit in the middle here. Kind of bring it in and form a loaf. If you see a bubble, you might want to try to pinch it to break it up. And then what I've done is I've put parchment paper on 2 cookie sheets that I'm going to use. And here's another bubble. We'll just break that up a little. And we'll place it on the cookie sheet. And we'll put 2 per pan as we form them here. Then we'll let them rise for 30 minutes. And what we're going to do, about 15 minutes into the rise, we're going to put our stove on 500 degrees. Need a little more flour there. And so you'll put your oven on 500 degrees. Once they've risen for about 30 minutes, you're going to then reduce your oven to 425 and let them bake for about 25 to 30 minutes. See how that is? And we'll put it on the pan. We'll take the next one, do the same thing. If you need a little more flour in your hand so the dough doesn't stick, then do that. You're gonna form that and put it in the next cookie sheet. Again, let it rise for 30 more minutes. Your oven will be on 500 degrees, and I would do that about 15 minutes into this rise. And then once you put it in the oven, again, reduce it to 425. And we will see you when these are finished baking. Well, the bread is done. And as you can see, it has that old world look. And let me tell you, it's delicious. Every recipe I do taste tests on it and make sure I have the recipe so that I can give you the proper instructions so that when you make it, it should come out exactly as mine. So, it's almost time to taste test. I also want to tell you that we have tried this bread recipe and made pizzas out of it. Half a recipe will give you 1 14-inch pizza. This double recipe will give you 2 14-inch pizzas that you can put whatever you want on them. And as you can see, I told you when this was rising the first time, I made a zucchini sauce, which we'll be eating shortly for dinner. So now it's time to taste test. I want to show you how beautiful that looks. Cut another piece here. Still warm. Put a little butter on it. Doesn't need it, but we'll just spread some butter on that and you can see it's still warm. The butter's melting on it. And I'll just take a little piece here. I see my cameraman asking for some. Gotta keep the cameraman happy. This is delicious. It will go perfectly with any dinner or lunch. Excuse me, I took too big of a bite. Cameraman says it's good. So, if you like this video and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so whenever any of our videos come out, the new videos, you'll get notified. And if you'd like and share with your family and friends, we'd greatly appreciate it. Also, check out some of the other videos that'll be popping up on the screen. Hopefully you'll like those too. In the meantime, have a great day, blessings, and keep on cooking.